Welcome to the Brainiac. Today we're going to focus on vectors. And today is the first class of mechanics, so let us look at the introduction to vectors. Vectors are mathematical representations of physical quantities that has both magnitude and direction. Let me give some examples of things you will encounter in physics. Let us first go through force. When we represent forces, we always represent them with an arrow. If we draw an arrow to represent a vector, the length of the arrow gives us the magnitude of the vector. When we talk about a force, if I draw a long vector, then I talk about a large force. And if I draw a small vector in the same direction, then I talk about a smaller force. The only difference here is that if the vector is long, then the quantity applied is large, and if the vector is short, the quantity applied is small. But in both, the direction is same. But now, if I draw the vector to this direction, you will notice that the length of both of this and this vectors are the same, only the direction is different. So remember, when we denote a vector, we use arrows, and the length of the arrows represent the amount of magnitude of the quantity applied. For this example, force, if you use a longer vector, then it means a larger force. For example, 500 newtons. And if you use a smaller vector, it represents a smaller force, like 5 newtons. These are the first basic points to remember. 1. We always denote vectors using arrows. 2. The length of the vector represents how large the quantity is. And number 3, the direction of the arrow says the direction in which the quantity is acting. Consider this man pushing this box. This box weighs 100 kilos. So you also can see the vector force is denoted with a large arrow here. And you also know that a large arrow means the large number of quantity applied, and the direction of the arrow clearly explains that this man is pushing the box left to right. Let us take a look at another example to get a clear understanding. Now you see the positively charged object, and you can notice that I have drawn lines all around it to show the electric field around the object. And the length of these vectors, they show the amplitude of the charge, and of course you can see that they are acting in all directions. Let us look another example for more clear understanding. Consider a soccer ball. And now you can see the soccer ball is kicked in this direction. And as you know, as you have studied in ordinary level, P, also known as momentum, is simply the product of mass, which is scalar, times the velocity, which is a vector. And the result is the momentum of P, which is also a vector. As we studied before, to denote this vector, we have used this line. Also, we use the same direction in the relationship. But remember, you only give the magnitude for vector quantities. Do not give them for scalar quantities. Mass in the sense is a scalar quantity. It has only a direction, but it does not have a magnitude. Let us look at one last example to get more deeper understanding in the concept of vectors. This car has a velocity with speed and direction combined. The length of this arrow clearly shows how fast the car moves, because the line drawn here is long. So we have already learned that if the vector drawn is a long vector, then the quantity applied is in large amounts. So in this case, the velocity of the car is higher. And earlier I did mention, when I am explaining momentum, I did mention a part called scalar. To understand about scalars, we can differentiate vectors and scalars. This is just a simple concept. Vector is a physical quantity that has both magnitude and direction, like the one we had earlier: velocity, force, and momentum. But a scalar is something with only a direction. For example, mass, as we saw in the example of momentum. Those are the basics of vectors. The next step of this lesson is vector notation. The video about vector notation will be released tomorrow. Until then, please stay subscribed to Brainiac, and please share our videos to your friends and ask them also to subscribe. Your subscribes and your valuable comments helps us to grow larger. Thank you for watching.